got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome in, golf fans. This is the Preferred Lines podcast. My name is Joe Idoni. Right next to me is John Haselbauer, and we are here to bring you a show where we're just going to talk. We're going to give off some hot takes. We're going to recap a little bit of Rocket Classic. We're going to do a strokes gain PowerPoint for all those out there who maybe need a little lesson. And then we're going to shift gears to talk Silvis, Illinois, John Deere Classic. We're in the dead heat of summer. I've got myself, this is my new favorite drink of the summer, John. I don't know if you're familiar with these. Sun Cruisers. No free shout outs, but they are phenomenal little iced tea vodkas. Go great with a pontoon boat and a lake, which I'll be on in a couple of weeks. Great to have you join us. John, how are you this evening? Welcome to the show.
Hell yeah. It's like my PGA Tour radio swing for me, where I'm on the beach on Sunday and I listen. I don't watch as much because like from, let's say, noon to 3, I'm on the beach, which is awesome. Love it. I got one earbud in with PGA Tour radio, listening to Sirius through the app. And then we come home and I watch the back nine on TV, and it's amazing. I get my sun, I get my sand in the my toes in the sand. It was great 2 weeks ago with Keegan to come back to. Last week, I didn't necessarily have a great sweat, but it was a great finish for an event that's otherwise like a forgettable one, but it always seems to like pump up the drama a bit. So I enjoyed the golf last week. I enjoyed my time last week. And there are so many storylines now, like that I'm more interested in talking about than the golf itself. And that's kind of the stretch we're in right now, where the golf is super easy and not as compelling. We get a little bit of a breather before the last major, and now we just kind of air out some takes.
Air out some takes. We got some bad guys. We're in the middle of summer. Good evening, Joanne, my boy Looper. What's good? Thanks for reposting the show. As always, if you want to join in on the chat and in on the fun, we'd love to have you subscribe over to the YouTube channel. And the promo code, as this show is proudly presented by the good folks over at Rotoballer PGA, is LINES. That will get you 10% off any weekly, annual, monthly sub. They're running an awesome promo this week that I reposted a couple of hours ago, where just drop the name of the guy you think is going to win the John Deere Classic, and you can get the rest of the year for free access, unadulterated access to Mr. T Off Sports, Spencer Aguiar's, all of his models, Discord channel, anything you want from Spencer, that is completely free. And he's one of the most profitable bettors I've ever known in golf. And it's all documented, completely free. Enter that contest. We'd love to have you. Thanks to Rotoballer, as always. And John, we've got a boy with some cake in the back that just won a PGA Tour tournament. Mr. Potgeiter wins the Rocket Classic, and he was literally sending rockets off the tee in Detroit, Michigan. A painful one, I will say, for me, as I had some runners in the mix. I had a little live nap ticket, but mostly Kirk, Thor, Matty Fitz made a little run. I felt like I had it peppered on the front page, you know, the little 6 guys that they show. Just didn't turn out, and that's the way that PGA Tour golf betting can go from time to time. But I love this stretch of the summer where these long shots have a real chance, and it feels like everybody's live in the field. What do you think of Mr. Potgeiter breaking through in his 20th? Was it 20 starts? Is that all he has?
Yeah, he's 20 years old. It might only be 20 starts. I was a victim of, that bad bounce for Campbell at the Mexico Open. I was on the bad side of, I guess we were both on the bad side of Aldrich playoffs. But yeah, he's a fun, promising young talent. He just contended and fell off the face of the earth for like, how long has it been since the Mexico Open? Like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And then his last start, it was like, oh wait, here's the top 10. He might be back. And then boom, he pops. And a lot of sharp people in the community were on it. Hat tip to them, because Aldrich was not on my radar. Maybe there was still a little bit of scar tissue for me and not believing that he could close out a tournament. And he kind of tried to not win it. But ultimately, I'm not going to call that as much of a pillow fight of a playoff as Burns versus Fox was, because there were great shots in there and they just weren't hitting 12-footers, which, like, okay, you don't always expect it. A 12-footer would be cool if they did. But they were hitting good shots. They had eagle looks on a par 5 in a playoff. So it was good golf. Good for him. An interesting player to follow. I will not be on him at 50-1, whatever he is this week, but good on him.
It was a full-on scramble mode in Detroit. It felt like CBS wasn't prepared for a playoff. They started like showing random spots of replays that didn't really fit in. Took a lot of time to get back to the tee. It felt like when you finish up, like you get like 8 buddies together and like 2 teams are tied, and you're like, we got to go find a hole somewhere on the course to play. Like, let's just drive around. They were bouncing the 15 all over the place. It was really random and a lengthy playoff, but Potgeiter, of course, gets it done, which brings me to a topic we'll discuss later. But the modern player, with as much speed as they have, these courses are kind of a problem that somewhat needs a solution. And I don't know exactly what it is. Interested in your take on it, but you look at a sort of turn of the century classical design, and I know they're blowing it up, but in Detroit Golf Club, and they're playing par 4s and they're chipping for their second shot. Like the first 3 holes, guys are hitting shots from like 47 yards, 62 yards. They're little half 60-degree wedges into these holes. And it's tough. As much as I enjoy the tournament and enjoy the sweat of having long shots compete in a jam-packed leaderboard, the other side of me is like, and part of me wants to see some challenge there. And golf is so unique in that we can go play, maybe not Detroit Golf Club, but we can go play a lot of these courses and they will challenge us to degrees, or even challenge scratch players or normal players. And we just want to see some of those challenges that were built into these turn of the century courses in bunker placement and nuances still in play to a degree for the top players, and not turning into send it 365, hit a chip from 40 yards and go make your birdie putt. Are you with me on that? Are you against me on that? Where do you side there?
Yeah, it's time for renovation. Like, I'm glad that their head is in that space already. They really should have grown the rough out this week. They had an option to, and they didn't. And that's what you saw. Like, there was no reason on one not to hit driver as far as you could and wedge it from 3-inch rough or less.
Yeah.
And they put the pins in the back too, where like if you're hitting from the rough, you just advance it up there anyway. So it's just, that's not the intention of this event. They're not trying to kick the players' asses with this setup. Some of these events are going to be birdie fests, and I don't love birdie fest for a lot of the reasons you don't, where it's like there's not that 2-shot swing down the stretch, where even for all its faults now at TPC River Highlands, there's at least so many hazards in play and so much water that there could be a blow up and a 2-shot swing. We saw that on 18 as well.
Yeah.
It's not really a threat for bogey on many of the courses on many of the holes at Detroit Golf Club. So it's almost at the point where Colonial was before they ripped it up, where it was like, oh wait, they're just hitting driver everywhere. That's not what they were supposed to do. Let's rip it up and push the bunkers back and make this course more penal, make the greens harder. Like even the greens weren't fighting back at all. And it's Donald Ross, and that's like what it needs to be doing. So
Yeah.
It's a century old. I'm sure that will be a defining characteristic after they restore it. And making this
though, they're hitting 9 irons into par 5s. Like it's tough, man.
Yeah.
They're in a tough spot.
Yeah, no, there's not that much you can do. You might have to convert one of those par 5s to a 4 or something.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have some birdie fests on the schedule. That's okay. From a handicapping standpoint, these are the weeks you need to build a really long card and have your exposure to the viable 100-1 guys like Potgeiter was.
Yeah.
And skip over the recent form at like the majors and the signature events, where it's just a totally different game. I mean, you're just using different clubs in your bag at a birdie fest than you are at a typical test of golf. So weeks like this, we'll get into John Deere later in the show, but like I'll skip over the last couple weeks and months of form. If you play great in the fall swing and the early birdie fest, like early Florida swing or something, like if if you've hit 20 under par earlier this season at any point, I think that's relevant. And that's the types of players that you have to go after for Birdie Fest.
Yeah, like you mentioned, these type of tournaments, as much as we may not be our preferred PGA Tour golf tournament, we're going to bet it. We're going to watch it. And it's just like, kind of leading into this next one, when I wanted to talk to you about something that's kind of irked me with the coverage. I'm going to watch golf. I'm going to watch it on CBS. I think that they do a ton of great things. By the way, you mentioned the John Deere Classic. Many of you listening here on audio or on YouTube may be here for that preview and picks. Probably the back end of the show, started about the 30-minute mark. I will try to put timestamps in, but we're going to ramble on some takes here. So one of the other things that pissed me off, beside the course being so good, John, I'm kind of in a ranting mood tonight, but the new off the tee shot tracer thing that will go from green to yellow to red halfway when the shot is in the air, I think is a terrible addition to the broadcast and live sports in general. It brings the entire drama out of it. It absolutely sucks. The guy just hit a tee shot, and 0.5 seconds later, it's lit up green because it's reading every single metric on the ball, the curve, the RPMs, the speed, all of that. It's telling you where it's going. And one of the old rules of golf broadcasting in play 10 to 15 years ago was never talk about a shot before the ball stops. Never say this looks like it's going in. Never say this looks like it's going in the water. You wait until it happens. That's how you build the drama of a moment. When Tom Brady or Peyton Manning throws a pass, I don't want it lighting up green halfway through the air like this is in between coverage. This is a good look. I want to see it play out. And that totally irked me on a number of these drives, particularly when you have someone when there's heightened drama with someone like Potgeiter or Gracerman or Jake Knapp, who can hit it 374, but they might just hit it off the planet. I want to see that take place in real time and not have it tell me the end result before I've even had the chance to read the book. Does that annoy you at all? It pisses me off watching that. I hate that addition to the broadcast more than anything I've seen in recent years.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I guess my question would be, what would be the technological advancement that's better than the top tracer that you would rather see? Or
I like the shot tracker. I like the fact that it's following in the air. I just don't want it to be predictive. I want to see it curving because it helps you follow the ball. The drone shot tracer is, I think, great. Keep it with what it was, man. It's showing you the curvature of the ball. You can see it heading into the trees. You can make your own inferences on where you think this is going to land. It's like they also had a predictive thing on approach shots where it would bring up a little a map, a topography map of the green, and it would show you where they're anticipating the ball to land before it actually lands. I just think it's taking some of the drama and the guesswork out of professional golf that makes it so exciting to watch. And it just wasn't necessary. Who's asking for it?
Yeah. No, I don't like it. It's also not always accurate anyway. So I've seen plenty of times where it looks red and it's still in the fairway. And it's if you can't even get that part of the tech right, then what is the point? Maybe I think I'd like to see the TrackMan numbers just flash on the screen, as if you were hitting in a simulator. As soon as they make contact, it's oh, that swing was 190, or his usual ball speed is 160, but the adrenaline's here and he hit at 170. That would be interesting to me. Or they're having a player caddy conversation and they're in between clubs and you can see he took some off of it, or he's hit something super spinny and you're oh no, it's super spinny. Where's it going to go? That would all be interesting to me. Another thing that it's such a low, a low hanging fruit to nitpick PGA Tour broadcasting because there's so much room to improve this disaster. But I want to see tour average make percent on all the putts, because and I mentioned I'm listening to PGA Tour radio, which is, I don't always do it, but in the summer for a couple weeks I will. And they have no, they're so good at their jobs, but they have no grasp of what a kick in versus a 50-50 putt is. And they'll hit a ball to 6.5 feet and they're broadcasting it as if he's in the hole. And it's no, that's a 50-50 putt at 6.5 feet. He's not in yet. And then they'll miss it and they'll be commenting he just blew it. And yes, if you're going to win a tournament, you have to hit all the 6-footers, but they're not gimmies. So
Not gimmies.
I would like to see a little bit more education on the broadcast of like what is actually makeable. And I think it'll help the players not get ripped apart on social media too.
Byron says throwing a fake. What's up, Byron? How are you? Congrats on the Potgeiter. Speaking of South Africans with a little junk in the trunk, my man Byron is here. We like our South Africans caked up and hitting bombs, and I know that's what he does. We're gonna get to the speed stuff later, John. Don't you worry. But I wanted to let's do a little credit check first. I'll kick us off. This is from my personal @TourPicks Twitter page. Will Gordon, credit check. Will Gordon caught the end of this on Friday. Dude made a birdie on the last hole, pretty clutch on a difficult 18th hole at Detroit Golf Club. Made the birdie putt. You could see the emotion on his face. He's literally like spinning, trying to just shake hands with the guys he was playing with. So emotional. He got back into the press room, was fighting back tears, was crying, could barely speak during this picture that I took of my screen here, and needed 0.6 FedEx Cup points to keep his PGA Tour card. He was playing on his last start of a medical exemption from an injury. He was like, Data Golf had it like 80% that the cut line was going to move to -7, and he was not going to get that. Shout out Michael Kim for a late 3-putt on Friday afternoon. Gets Will Gordon onto the weekend. I think he finished like T54 or 55 or something like that. But just these type of moments, especially in weeks like this, the Rocket Classic, the heat of summer, there's no Scotty Scheffler. What's going to compel you to watch a broadcast and get fired up and root for these guys on the PGA Tour? This is the type of stuff that gets me to root for you. When I see the emotion, when I see the work, when I see how much it means to you, it means more to me. So little credit check for Willie G there. What do you got this week, John?
Yeah. Good story for Willie G. Makes you appreciate the non-signature events that have cuts and the implications of making them. I've always said it, but that's what makes Fridays compelling. There's nothing else that makes Friday golf compelling except the cut sweat, especially stories like that. So love to see it. Hope if he can make the top 70, that'd be amazing. He's having an okay year, but just to retain any sort of status is a great story. I'm going to give my credit not to a player, but to a caddy. I think who had a better week than JJ Jakovich last week? I mean, Collin is getting flamed again by the media for his comments about.
We're going to get to him.
I mean, what a ridiculous storyline that was. He's getting all pissy about being asked.
Did he even have the right reporter?
He was confusing an Adam with an Allen, misremembering the chain of events. He got all worked up because he was asked a question while he was at a pro-am, and they posted a story that wasn't even a bad quote. It was just like they posted an article and quoted Collin as saying, "I'm at a pro-am right now. I'll answer your questions later," which is like accurate reporting.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody could be upset with that. And then they edited the report after his comments at the press conference. But clearly, everybody's takeaway from that was like, whoa, Collin is a lot. He overreacts to a lot of things. He's a little high maintenance. And then you're like, wait a second. What happened with that caddy situation? Like, why did he drop JJ? Like, they had a good thing going. And you're starting to think, was this a two-sided decision where JJ was like, I don't really want to put up with this guy anymore. So JJ hops on the bag with Michael Thorbjornsen. And I don't know if they tied or Thorbjornsen got the better of him, but they were together on the Sunday pairings. There's two of them in a twosome. We were talking about this before the show. Like, what are the odds of that? Like JJ.
I didn't even realize they were together.
Didn't realize they were together because they were showing no Collin shots because he wasn't in the mix, because once again, he wasn't doing what he has to do to win a golf tournament. I know you have takes on Collin that we will talk about of he's not chasing distance and the fields are lapping him because he doesn't have enough length. Well, guess who is chasing distance? Michael Thorbjornsen, who's top 5 in distance and now has this awesome coupling with JJ Jakovich, one of the best caddies in the game. So clearly JJ was not the issue for Collin. He's worse off without him. And JJ has a nice partnership. I'm not saying that Thorbjornsen's better than Collin. He's not, but maybe we look 5 years from now, and that's a partnership that they still have. And he's a level-headed dude and a young kid with a bright future ahead of him. And he doesn't have to deal with this headache. So I think everybody respects JJ a little bit more with seeing the initial success he's had with the new kid on the bag. And I'm excited. Yeah, I'm going to be rooting for him going forward too.
Incredible that they were together. Like Byron says, I didn't even realize it at the time. I knew that he was on Thor's bag. It's crazy that he went from Collin and just went young speed with everything that happened this week. But it's kind of funny. All right, so let's do the Morikawa thing. All right, we're going to talk about this for a few minutes. So if you don't want to listen to this, skip ahead on this part of the show. I have takes because I put out a tweet on the heels on a quote retweet of Brian Kirshner. I'm going to bring it up now just to put some context to the whole thing and where this all started. All right, John. Collin spent the last 3 years tinkering with caddy, putter, swing feels, glove on and off, etc. And I said he continues to find excuses to avoid the obvious answer. You can roll this back to January. I think I said this after the Hero World Challenge, and I'm like, Collin Morikawa is killing himself right now because he's not attempting to get faster, and it's something that is extremely achievable, and he's not doing it. Asking your iron play to be so exceptional that the fact that it masks that you're disadvantaged in most big tournaments, particularly major championships, to players who are 15, 20, 30 yards longer was never sustainable. He was winning at like a 1 in 10 clip to start his career. Who else was crowned at such a young age winning 2 major championships? I'm not taking any of this away from him, but at the height of Collin Morikawa in 2021, he was doing it despite being ranked 83rd in distance, and he was averaging 301 off the tee that year. Now, that was a lot to ask at that time, I thought, for someone who's hitting at 301 to win major championships, who's 83rd in distance. He's going to have to be perfect on approach to overcome that. Now, fast forward 4 years later, he's currently 149th in distance and averaging 293 yards off the tee. He's 8 yards shorter 4 years later than he was at the height when he was the number 2 ranked players in the world. All the best players in the world, nobody is getting shorter. Every player that's coming up through PGA Tour is continuing to pump up the average driving distance rate. Because why? Because they're coming from college. And if you're a college coach at any place in the country and you're recruiting these kids who are going to be the best players in the world, what is the number one thing as a coach that you want that kid to have right now above anything else? You want speed. You want speed. You can teach everything else. If a kid already has speed, they know, the college coaches know, they're already at such a giant advantage over the rest of the players that are competing with coming out of their class. It's starting from there. It's trickling up the ranks through the best players in college. It's coming to the PGA Tour. And the fact that it's something that is so extremely achievable for someone like Collin Morikawa, because others have done it. I don't want to care about his size, about his frame. He can get faster. It's doable. All it takes is hard work. And I don't understand why he won't look in the mirror and instead of point fingers at the media, instead of make up stories where you end up punching yourself in the face, instead of blaming caddies, instead of switching putters mid-round, instead of all this stuff, the thing that makes him most likely to win more major championships, maybe not top 20 more events, but win more major championships, is he needs to start hitting it 310 yards off the tee. And if he can do that, he will be in much better shape long-term throughout his career. And I don't understand the argument against this. Now, this went crazy. This was like me starting the kindling of a little fire. There are some threads between people on both sides of this argument. I think they both made valid points, but we're going back 29 posts with each other, back and forth on both sides. They could be bots from Kazakhstan for all I know, but there was a lot of action on this. So I wanted your take on it. I'm going to dive in a second into some of just the basic elementary understanding levels of strokes gained off the tee, but like, where do you stand on just in general Collin Morikawa, and if he's someone who you think should be chasing speed, or if he's someone that just is doing fine, he just needs to figure out the putting situation?
Yeah, I definitely understand both sides of the argument. So I don't feel like you very much feel strongly on one side of the argument.
Yeah.
I actually think I'm more on the other side of it. I would say if he took the time that you want him to dedicate to speed chasing and focus solely on putting, I feel like the tee degree game is good enough that if he becomes a very good putter, he'll just win more events. Like he was last in the field after round 1 or 2 in putting this week. Then he figured it out. I feel like he doesn't do aim point. I feel like he's one of few people who don't do aim point. That would probably help. Like I look at Collin on the greens and I'm like, the stroke looks good. He's
Yeah, he's
not
made
like
comments
fidgety.
against aim point, right? Where he doesn't like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it just looks like he's not reading the putts right. Like he's hitting it exactly where it needs to go, and he's just not reading it right. So, and that's not going to get any better by playing with a college teammate on your bag. So that I think is the bigger issue. And I would point to somebody like Sepp Straka as an example of like, he's going the opposite way, right?
Good
Like
one.
2 seasons ago, he was all distance and some accuracy, and he has not gained in distance in the last 2 years. He's been fully focused on striping right down the middle, probably took some off. Maybe like a Tony Finau is another example of someone who could chase speed but doesn't. Mixed results there. But I would say Straka has laid the blueprint for if you're just going to hit every single fairway, you can win. Russell Henley, maybe another example there. He's not winning majors, but he did outduel Morikawa, and it was because he like stepped up with his short game down the line. So I lean towards that, but where I'll agree with you in the sense that like caddies look at what's his name? The guy jumped from Joe Scovrin. He was with Tom Kim, and as soon as he had a chance to jump over to the Ludwig, he was like, "I'm out of here," because what Tom Kim is doing with his ball speed is not sustainable. And you've seen everything kind of catch up to Tom Kim. He's fallen off the face of the earth this year. That would not happen if you were a bomber like Aldrich, where there's a couple course fits every year that you just know if you can lap the field in driving distance, you have such a big advantage. There's a lot of good approach players, so it's not like this silver bullet if you're the best approach player in the field anymore. But if you're one of the longer hitters, Ben Griffin, another example, that just unlocks so much more for you.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of things there. I understand what you're saying about the putter and having to fix that. I just feel like it's something as much as he can try to do, there is no certain answer on if it's going to work or not. He can try aim point. He can try a broomstick. He can try a new putter. He can try a new caddy. There is almost zero certainty that any of that is going to be effective and make him a better putter. Putter is highly variable as it is. To me, there's a reason that guys like Denny McCarthy and these guys are really good putters is it's feel and it's natural, and they'll tell you, and he told me on this show, he doesn't really practice it. It's just a feel thing. So you kind of one of those things where to a degree you have it or you don't, but it's also highly variable. I think if he just worked at getting longer, that's an achievable goal for him that he would see legit benefit from. Right. And there's really like, he's not going to you're not going to try to get longer and get slower. Does that what you know? I understand what I'm saying? If you use the systems that have worked for almost every other player that have been credited with, you look at the assets of major championships on long courses. What did Wyndham Clark have? Wyndham Clark had speed. Wyndham Clark doesn't have much else, but he's got speed. He's a U.S. Open champion. What's the first thing that Matthew Fitzpatrick said after he won a U.S. Open? I got faster. Right? There's another example of the guy that's the favorite of the John Deere field this week who spent the last 6 months working on one specific thing, and now all of a sudden he's the favorite in the John Deere field. But before we get to any of that, I kind of wanted to go through this explanation exercise, if you all will, on how strokes gained off the tee works, because in looking at some of the comments, I don't feel like everyone understands it, and I think even if you do, you could use a little refresher. It's PowerPoint time, folks, on the Preferred Line show. So let's explain strokes gained off the tee. We're going to look at the 15th hole at TPC Deere Run this week. The 15th hole at TPC Deere Run is a par 4 that plays 471 yards. Yes, it is one of the more difficult holes on the course. Step 1 to figure out strokes gained off the tee: calculate what the average score on that hole is. Well, on this hole over the last years, it's been 4.1 strokes. So it's 0.1 over par this hole plays. Step 1, complete. Step 2, where'd the ball go off the tee? Is it in the fairway? Is it in the rough? Is it in the bunker? Is it in a hazard? And then from that point where it lands, how many yards are left to the hole? So player A, let's call him Collin Morikawa, hits his drive in the fairway. He has 170 yards to the hole. The PGA Tour average to hole out, and this is somewhat flexible depending upon the course and the hole, but PGA Tour average to hole out from 170 yards in the fairway is 3.02 strokes. Moving on, the strokes gain off the tee calculation there, the whole average is 4.1. Expected strokes after his drive, 300 yards in the fairway, is 3.02. He gained 0.8 off the tee on that one shot. That's the calculation. That's how it all breaks down for someone who hit it short in comparison to other players, but in the fairway. Now, let's look at 2 other examples so you can see what happens if player B misses the fairway. He's a long player. He hits it in the rough. He's got 160 in. PGA Tour average to hole out from 160 in rough, 3.1 strokes. That player is dead even. This is the shot taken plus 3.1. He gains 0 strokes off the tee on that shot. Now, here's where it gets different, right? And this is where strokes gain can be a little bit deceptive to people because you're not always factoring in averages. You're factoring in the one person who does it correctly. Player C, Collin Aldrich Potgeiter, hits it 330 yards. He's got 150 yards to the hole in the fairway, 2.85 strokes. 4.1 hole average. He gained a quarter of a stroke off the tee. That's a ton. Gaining a quarter stroke off the tee on a shot is a ton. Now, you can't do that anywhere else. This is where strokes off the tee is different because you can gain a ton of strokes on approach. If you chip in around the green, you can gain 2 strokes on one shot, right? If you look at what Victor Hovland did at Oakmont, he led the tournament in strokes gained around the green. He may have been second, but he led the tournament strokes gained around the green. He was like 50-50 in scrambling that week, but he had 2 chip-ins. Yep. 2 chip-ins, that's plus 4 strokes gained around the green on 2 shots. You can't do that off the tee. That's why distance is so important because it's not factoring in how much of an advantage it is. And it's also the sort of the third part of this is, can player C hit fairways consistently? Right? That's the question, and that's what everyone's going to come back to, but it only takes one of those guys to do it. There are a lot of player Cs on the PGA Tour these days. There were 25 guys in the field last week who can hit at 188 mile an hour ball speed. One of them has very likely to get it right, and last week it was Potgeiter. He hit 64%. He had 38 fairways. You know how many fairways Collin Morikawa hit? 38 fairways. But the difference is, and here's the difference for me, and what I don't think people understand is the difference between probability and possibility, John. The difference between probability and possibility. Probability is, will Aldrich Potgeiter hit as many fairways as Collin Morikawa? Probably not, right? But is it possible? Yeah. He just did it. Is it possible for Jake Knapp to hit as many fairways as Morikawa? Yes. Thorbjorn Bjornsson? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Yes. All of these modern bombers, it is possible for them to hit the same amount of fairways as a highly accurate player. Not probable, possible. Is it possible for Collin Morikawa to hit a 363-yard drive like Knapp, like Potgeiter did? It's not. So it's a one-way street, and it only works when the players can pay it off. That's why these guys are volatile. That's why they have more. That's why Cameron Champ has 3 PGA Tour wins, because the upside of when you get it right is winning tournaments. And I bet to win outrights. I don't bet for DFS. I don't bet for top 40 markets. I bet to win outrights, and that's why these guys have the best chance. And if Collin Morikawa wants the highest probability to get himself in contention at major championships, to me, the answer is speed. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. I thank you for putting that all together. I think that was very educational for everyone. We all see at the end of the day how many strokes somebody's gained in each category, and we think that means good or bad, but it's never that black and white. There's always nuance all along the way. I love that. To add on a couple less scientific tidbits.
Fire back at me. If anyone has stuff in the chat to be the other end, or if you do, John, fire away.
I'm gonna yes and on the distance stuff. Then we can go back to like some devil's advocate counterpoints afterwards, maybe. But what's also great about adding distance is that your next club in is now 1 to 2 clubs less. So let's take Ben Griffin as a great example, someone who just did this sudden distance chase. So he was probably driving at 290 before, now he's driving at like 320. So now
almost
he has
spot on because I looked him up.
Yeah. So now if that was a 470 hole that you just shared, it used to be a 180 shot in, which was probably, let's say, a 7 iron for him, maybe a 6 iron. Now he's 30 yards closer. So he's, instead of 170, he's 140. And because he's chased all this distance, that is like 1 or 2 less clubs for him. So not only is he hitting a 130 shot in instead of 170, his 130 club is now a gap wedge instead of a 9 iron. And you're going to hit a gap wedge closer than you're going to hit a 9 iron. You're going to be able to spin it and control it a little bit better.
Correct.
So it's incrementally making the game easier for you if you're closer and you don't have to take as much club in. The counterpoint to this is if Collin, not all 170 approaches are the same. So Collin may be so dialed in from 170 that the expected score for everybody might be 3, but he's so dialed in from 170 that that's actually his go zone sweet spot. And he's not at a disadvantage because he understands that in lieu of chasing distance and focusing on driver, he's going to get perfect at the mid to long iron ranges, which he is. He really is. He's one of the best. That's why he's able to contend so much, because if it's a contest of I've got to hit it closer from 170 than you can hit it from 150, he's actually winning that contest a lot. He's just making it harder on himself.
Yeah, and look, gaining speed isn't easy. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster and going to be volatile in trying to do it, and it's not always going to be the outcome. It's golf. You're going to have guys like JJ Spaun still win the US Open at Oakmont and not be a longer hitter. Now, to me, my argument would be if one of the longer hitters had a good week with their driver, if Bryson, if Rahm, if Rory, even Scotty had a great week with their driver and Scotty didn't blow up on Thursday, Friday before it, he probably would have beaten JJ Spaun. He would have had a much better chance of one of those guys winning had they got it right. So it's not, there are no absolutes in it. You brought up Ben Griffin. I have some more stuff here on Ben Griffin. This is Ben Griffin. This is going back to 2024. On your top left is his distance compared to PGA Tour average. On the bottom left is his accuracy compared to PGA Tour average. This is from Data Golf. As you see, predictably, as distance goes up, as he gains speed right here at this point, right around, I would say like March of 2020, when his stuff really started to pay dividends, right? You see his accuracy start to go down. His speed goes up. Look at the results. Like, they speak for themselves. Ben Griffin, in a quote after he got his win, "I've gained a ton of distance going into the season. I was pretty much in the low 170s ball speed. I've done a lot of work training in the last couple of months." 3 months. It transformed him as a player. Like, to me, you can experiment with putters. You can experiment with aim point. This is a proven method that has worked for more players than it hasn't worked for. And I don't understand why he's not willing at least to give it a shot and try it, because is the frame and is the starting body prototype of Ben Griffin that different than Collin Morikawa?
No.
They're kind of the same. It doesn't take a huge guy, is what I'm saying. You can have speed and not be a poke eater. You can gain that in other ways. This is like the top 5 in the world plus Bryson. They're all getting longer. He's getting shorter. Went from number 2 in the world to number 5. He's still an unbelievably great player, but to me, he's obviously searching for answers. He's frustrated by the fact that he's not getting over the finish line while still playing consistent enough to be a top 5 player in the world. That has to be infuriating. I can't understand or even really fathom the mind pretzel that would put you in to be a top 5 player in the world in a sport and go years without winning.
Yeah.
Loss. And to him, like, is a T8 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic a win? No, it's a loss.
Yeah.
You're the favorite. You're a top 5 player in the world. So to go years without winning and maintain this status of being a great has to put you in a bit of a mental pretzel. And to me, I think the answer for him, besides looking at putting, besides looking at caddy changes, besides looking at who's responsible for putting this pressure on you and who's treating you unfairly and who doesn't understand you, to me, the answer is go out there, get a stack system, get whatever they are, and just try to get 5 to 6 miles per hour faster. And I think you'll be set up greater for success down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we talk about in 2025, looking ahead 2026, how many weeks of the year do you go into this tournament and say accuracy is at a premium? If you're not accurate, you're dead. Compare that to how many times do we say distance is at a premium? If you're losing strokes to the field with driving distance, you're basically dead. I could think of maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks this year where I said, if you don't have control of your driver, you're dead and I don't want anything to do with you. And it seems like every single week we break down a tournament, with the exception of maybe like Harbor Town, where like, yeah, like, you know, it's good to be good on approach, but it's never going to hurt you to have extra distance. And total driving, I think, is what's really become the silver bullet now. If you can hit it long and straight, you're set up so much better. And like you said, only so many people have it in them to hit at a certain distance. Everybody has it in them to hit fairways. It's just a game of probability, like you said. So yeah. At the end of the day, the more that they update modern courses, the more they are going to favor length, the less they are going to favor positioning. Technology has bygone the Harbor Towns of the world. There's not many else like them. Even Colonial would be one of the few examples that you would say reward the accurate plotter, and Ben Griffin won that event because of his distance chasing. So
You've
what
seen
more
how
can you
people
really
have
say?
started to attack PGA National, have started to attack the Travelers, have started to attract Harbor Town, courses that traditionally it was like club down, hit the fairway. And I think Rory said this at Oak Hill. And this is kind of a take on modern courses and that kind of stuff. But Rory said at Oak Hill, he had played it kind of growing up, and he had known, you know, he was close to the club. He was a member there. He'd known so much about the history. And he was like, after he had struggled and he kind of came back at the end, he was like, I tried to play Oak Hill like the course was intended to be played, right? Try to play Oak Hill like how they intended Oak Hill to be played when this course was designed. But then he realized the answer to playing Oak Hill was not to play it how it was designed. It was he has this unbelievable weapon and asset and was to hit it as far as he possibly can and figure it out from there. So I think that's just the way that the modern game is trending. And I think for a top 5 player in the world to kind of, I think, somewhat intentionally turn his cheek to that is what's sort of troubling to me about it, and to at least not acknowledge it and to say that it's something that you're willing to try when you're trying everything else is somewhat off-putting, and it's kind of where this thing started. But we've spent, John, 43 minutes here now, mostly talking about Collin Morikawa and getting me fired up. Let's dish out some picks. You ready to hit some picks for the JDC, bub?
You know what? I want to end this on one last
Please.
tidbit about strokes game, because I noticed this before we knew we were going to approach this topic, and I just needed to share it. Did you know that Carl Phillips, our boy, becoming a constant, like just a random guy that we always talk about on the show?
Yeah.
Did you know that he 4-putted twice in one round last week?
I did not. How
And
many strokes game did you lose there?
He lost 7 strokes on those 2 holes. And for the week, he lost 3. And these are just the little tidbits you notice when you look at stroke skin. You look at it and you're like, okay, he shot +1 and he was awful at putting. But if you remove 2 where he probably just wasn't even looking and tapped it back and forth, then he actually really had a good putting week, and he would have made the cut if not for 4-putting twice. So Strokes
Even our
gained
boy
is fine.
Tom and Marty said it's like it's a useful tool. You have to use it, but it can be deceptive. I talked about the Hovland thing. The proximity stuff can be super deceptive as well. Proximity to the hole. You don't know the target line. If you're too close, it counts against you actually in proximity. If you look into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Even last week, how do they hit how does Potgeiter and Morikawa hit the same number of fairways, right? The same number of fairways for the week, which is ironic. Yet Potgeiter gains 1.7 strokes. He was not even 2 strokes at a better advantage for hitting it that far past him on every single hole. Like, it has to be worth more than that. That's why I'm saying it's deceptive off the tee, that it looks like it's less important than I think it really is. But let's hit some JDC bets. Let's pull up the board, see who we got. We got to talk about my boy Dirt. Let's fire some bets. Odds to win the John Deere Classic. Benny Griffin, we talked about him, 16-1. Jason Day, 25-1 off a good week at the Travelers. Denny McCarthy, here he is. Get that John Deere tractor. Let's pick up some dirt. 28-1. I may need you to talk me into this one because I'm kind of on a ledge here, John. Siwoo Kim, 33. JT Poston, 33. Thor, 33. Chris Kirk, 35-1. Jake Knapp, 35-1. A couple of guys, bunch of guys who were in contention last week. Some guys who have won this tournament before. John, what are you feeling at the top of the board?
I can't make a decision either, so this will be helpful for both of us just to really analyze this board. You're going to end up betting Denny. I know. We know this.
I mean, can you imagine if he wins? I'll feel terrible. You know what? Go ahead. Go say what you were going to say.
So I think it's a good number. I find myself leaning more towards Jason Day. I have no problem with anybody betting Ben Griffin at 16-1. I think that's fair. I don't think it's a bad bet. It's not what I'm going to do because I just watched last week so closely, and you look at the names on that leaderboard and you see that it could have been any of 20 guys separate from the pack, and you just want bullets. You know, at the end of the day, I just want bullets. And even if Ben Griffin is in the mix come Sunday, but I picked like 300-1 guys and one of them is in the mix, they've all got a shot coming down the stretch. You just got to make some putts. So I'm going to skip past Ben Griffin. I will have no remorse or regrets if he wins. If he does, good on him. He's on the Ryder Cup team. If he doesn't, he's probably on the Ryder Cup team anyway at this point. Having a great season. Don't expect it to cut down this week. If there's a reason not to pick Ben Griffin, he's played 7 in the last 8 weeks, I believe. Mm-hmm. He just keeps playing. And it's got to weigh on him at some point. He's about to go overseas next week, too. I'm assuming he might be looking ahead a little bit. I don't think he should be here. I don't think there's any reason for him to be here. So that would be the only thing. Like, is he really going to play well again for 8 straight weeks, whatever it is? So I'm going to fade Ben Griffin. My choice at the top is going to probably be between Jason Day and Denny McCarthy. Jason Day is, I talk about this a lot on this show. Like, he doesn't need to be here. He's gone very far out of his way to play this tournament.
Does he need the points?
I don't think so. He's like top 35 in FedEx Cup and in the world. Like, he's definitely qualified for the Scottish. He's definitely qualified for the Open. He played here last year, which I thought was interesting. Played pretty well. Wasn't in great form and finished top 25. Played a lot like decades ago and then stopped once he became the great Jason Day. Okay. Yeah, well, interesting. Well, interesting way of prioritization, but sure. Try to pick up another win here. That's good. That's good info. Jason Day can win a putting contest. The last time he won was TPC Craig Ranch. It's his only win since 2018, but I'm not concerned about him filling it up on the greens. He's a great putter, always has been, is in great putting form and one of the best putters in this group. And obviously not as good of a putter as Denny, but right in that sphere, I would say, and a much better approach player this season, although Denny is in the midst of his best career season on approach, and he's not just getting by as an average ball striker. He's actually been above average and a great putter, which translates very well here, and he has 3 straight top 10s. So I'm leaning more towards Jason Day. I think Jason Day is appropriately a bit shorter because he's in good form, a better overall pedigree, a veteran, knows how to win. But I can be talked into Denny, and I'd love for you to give the case for Denny.
God, God, the case for Denny is course history. It's putting upside. It's due to win. It's coming to this event for a reason. There it is, bet placed. I can't resist any longer. Just you like saying his name on this show and me looking at him 28-1. It's in. It's in. We're staking Denny McCarthy to win the John Deere Classic. It lines up too perfectly. He's there to move the dirt. He's there to pick the ball out of the ground and pick it out of the dirt. He's going to hole putts. He's having the best approach season of his career, and this is a course where clearly he's kind of taken a liking to, loves Midwest golf, played really good for, a portion of the Travelers Championship. Got bitten by the 15th hole a couple of times there, but he's here to win. He's here to win, and I think it happens this week. So of all these guys, to me, I just don't see it with Day. I don't see it with Siwoo Kim. I can maybe come back in on someone like Kirk or Thorne Bjornsson here, who also played it really well in his first time around. Chris Kirk loves this event. He's playing really well in good form right now. It's kind of one of the reasons I was on him last week. So it would feel a bit shameful to get off that now. And then it happened after just taking it to a playoff. But, I really don't have a great take on it other than the fact that I'm so beholden to this stock right now that I can't sell it. And it seems like I have to just go back in and buy more.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not interested in Siwoo or Poston here. I think we should talk about Thor Bjornsson a little bit because he might be the community play. He's 33-1. There's a lot of guys in the 30s that I think 30s to 40s that I think are super interesting this week. He's obviously got a great caddy on the bag now, paid immediate dividends. And before he had a caddy who had any idea what he was doing, he had back-to-back, what was it, T17 and then a runner-up last year in his first two events here. That T17 came as an AM, I believe. So like he just showed up here and seems to love this course. He doesn't play every course well. His history is a lot of miscuts or top tens, for the first year and a half he's had on the tour. So he's risky. He's somebody that I'm in the thick of it and one and done. And I've got to make a decision. Is it Thor?
Who'd you go with last week?
Griffin. So okay. Like nobody picked Potgeiter, so I didn't, and there's not much money at stake, so I didn't really fall backwards. It kind of stayed the course.
So you're thinking Thor Bjornsson could be the play this week?
It's either going to be Denny, Thor, or Clanton, I think, for me. And I have no idea where I'm going with that. I have no idea. I think Denny's going to be super chalk. I think Thor will also be fairly chalk. But I'm pretty high up there, so I don't really need to do the leverage thing. And the worst thing that could happen would be a community, 20% owned guy and one and done, me not being on it and having thousands of people at me. So I may go conservative, but yeah. What are your thoughts on Thor Bjornsson?
I mean, it's hard for me not to get like odds snobby when you bet someone at like 80-1 and then it's the next week and they're 30-1.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard for me to slice the price in half. Same thing with Chris Kirk and still mentally get myself back to going into that ship, but I can see why. He played great. I'm just more inclined naturally, I would say, on the whole, to look at guys with similar odds who I maybe saw a little bit less from, but that have room to kind of still achieve that peak. Like someone like Luke Clanton, like his odds didn't really shift off of a pretty good performance at the Travelers. It was probably 40-1 here to begin. If they had futures out for the John Deere Classic, he was probably 40-1 3 months ago. And you're getting the same price, and he's not playing poorly. Still plenty of upside, still shares many of the skill set and talent traits, if not more, than a young player like Michael Thorne Bjornsson has. And you're getting a better price. You're not getting it when it's slashed completely. But he's in this range. Davis Thompson, 35-1. Sungjae Im, 35 is like pretty wild. Lucas Glover, who I really like this week, is 40-1. I think I found a 45 and took that this morning. Rated out number one in my BetSperts model, which is over there as well. If you want to build your own BetSperts model, use the promo code LINES. You can check out mine. John has his model up as well. But Glover rated out number one in mine. Pearson Cootie got kind of low odds this week. Gerard's going to be popular. got her up. I jumped on live last week at 250 to 1. He made his run and then 3 putts galore. But he had a really good finish here. And Clanton runner up last year, correct?
Yeah, him and Thor.
I mean, Davis Thompson 28 under is unbelievable for a par 71. Outrageous. He won by 4, but Clanton runner up at that time as an amateur player. Smalley, Stevens, Ricky. You've been on Ricky a couple of times. Any interest in going back there? You told me a couple of weeks ago he's playing better than some of the stuff may appear. It's not a terrible price.
Yeah, nasty miscut last week on a course. The only one he's won recently to look that bad. I have to take a step backwards on Fowler. I am kind of interested in Kevin Yu, though. He had a little like phantom surprise withdrawal last week. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know if anybody in the chat knows why he withdrew, if it's injury related or what, if he's full strength again. But he's got a couple top 10s over the last few weeks in easy scoring conditions. He won at Sanderson Farms. Again, I'm happy to look back to last fall swing now because Birdie Fest golf is so different. It's you're not really being tested on your first shot. It's who can hit greens in regulation and make the putts a lot. One of my takes, we've had so many takes on this spot. This take's going to get buried. I think you have to be more perfect. Your game has to be more perfect to win a Birdie Fest than it does to win a major. I fully believe that. If you have to get to 26 under, you have to make every birdie opportunity.
Can't ever go backwards.
You can't make a bogey. You can't recover from it. If you have a bad hole, if you slip up and you bogey a hole at a major, everyone's making that mistake. You have to hit a bunch more great shots, but you can afford to make mistakes. You can't go backwards at a Birdie Fest. If you do, we saw it with Potgeiter in the beginning of that tournament. He had to be perfect afterwards, but he went back. He was the only one in the top 30 of the leaderboard who was over par through like his first 6 holes, and he was hit like T8 at a certain point. So it's a different game. I don't compare this to a lot of the golf we've seen before. I want to see guys who can get it deep into the mid 20s, which is very conducive to long shots and honestly not too different from the mentality you need on the Korn Ferry Tour, which to me explains why guys like Thor Bjornsson and Clanton coming out of junior ranks or Korn Ferry ranks immediately find success here, and why so many PGA Tour players have gotten their first wins at the John Deere Classic, because it's kind of a PGA Tour light Korn Ferry Tour adjacent setup.
Definitely. There's a ton of similarities there. There's names there like someone like Cootie, 40 to 1, like blew my mind to see him at that price. But when you bring up that point, they're prepared to try to shoot 25 under week in and week out. Into this next sort of range, you get Michael Kim, who's obviously was playing great golf on the whole this season, former champion here, 50 to 1. Keith Mitchell, I think, could be a popular name if people want to go there at 55 to 1. Potgeiter is back at 50 to 1. Mark Hubbard, I've seen some love on at 55. Kevin Roy, is it Roy or is it like the goalie for the Avalanche, Roy?
I believe it's he's part of the Succession family.
Okay, just a Roy.
Roy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I actually think he's from Syracuse.
Young Nico, 60 to 1. Oh, Kevin Roy, Syracuse guy. All right, so you might be in on that. Lee Hodges, Taylor Moore, Emiliano Grillo. I'm kind of just rattling names here, John, but if you have anyone kind of above 50 to 1 that you want to give a take on or you have eyes on this week, go ahead and let it rip.
Yeah, I think I'll do the Keith Mitchell thing again. I've seen him at 60. I think that at that point, sure. Like, I don't think there's like Pearson Cootie, Potgeiter after an emotional win. I don't want those guys over Keith Mitchell. I know.
Yeah, you're right. Cootie over Keith Mitchell doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, obviously he's not much of a winner, but I do see a little bit of a correlation with PGA National here. Just looking through, I was looking at like how could we predict some of the winners over the last 5 years. Seemed like a pretty strong correlation of them playing well at the Honda or the Cognizant the years before that. So like Davis Thompson had one of his good results there. Sepp Straka had no good results between that's a
good pull.
The Honda and then there. Lucas Glover, Luke Clanton. So they're not alike really at all. They're just maybe similar yardage, I guess. So maybe you get similar approach is. Yeah, Denny always playing well here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, maybe it's a Keith Mitchell week. I don't know. I'm prepared for the worst. I'm going to bet a lot of guys around 100. I like, I'm probably going to bet Phillips again because I'm going to give him a pass for 4-putting twice. I don't think he'll do that again.
Yeah.
Who else? I think Lee Hodges is live. I bet him last week. I might go back to him. I like Hisatsune. I think there was some Hisatsune talk in the chat. I think he makes sense here.
Hisatsune talk. What about Eric Cole? 100-1. I did bet Eric Cole, but I probably need talked into it. I think that was Baroff pulling my strings.
Yeah, he was popping like crazy in my model. He was #1 in comp course history for what I ran, which is interesting. I don't think I'm there. I was like ready to be on him, and then I looked at the results recently. They haven't been very good. No. Max McGreevy was popping for me. I may dabble there. I don't think I've ever bet.
Oh, Max Tommy Lib says before. Cole withdrew.
That's probably for the best for everybody's sake.
Refund that Hard Rock.
There is just a lot of guys in this like 50 to 100 range.
What about Matt McCarty? Everyone loves Matt McCarty.
Yes. He's going to be on my card for sure. I think
80-1.
He either led the Masters on approach or was like top 5 in approach. And I was like, whoa, that's
the Masters.
Yeah. He was like one of the top guys on approach. He finished top 15 at the Masters, which is crazy. Brian Harmon has good history here, so maybe there's a lefty narrative you could chase with Matt McCarty. Won a birdie fest, won in the fall swing. There's a lot of things, and he's a good putter. Won 4 times last year between the PGA Tour and Korn Ferry Tour. So there's a lot that I like about Matt McCarty. He's definitely on my card. And then Alex Smalley, I forgot to talk about him. He was the guy I spotlighted. Has a runner up here, known to disappoint. Great striper of the ball.
Known disappointer.
But
same second in my model, I think.
Always plays well in Birdie Fest. One of these guys who like the game is just different when it's simplified and just hit birdies and make putts. So he's probably going to need a backdoor to get it done, but I think he's going to play well this week.
Shout out Ben James, 250-1. Took that too. He was on my card. I don't know if it was Colonial a couple of weeks ago at a shorter price. Great player. I saw a couple of guys, my boy Skylar, on him. So I'm like, I see Ben James' name pop up in my Twitter feed. I just immediately go to take a little piece of that. Full card out for me on Wednesday, as always. Market movers, matchup picks out on Wednesday, as always. John, you got everything you need to know for TPC Deere Run. Published and live now. Appreciate you bearing with us for this hot take express of a show for Preferred Lines. As always, tell a friend, like, subscribe. That's all great. Tell a friend to check out the show. Tell them you enjoy us. Tell them it's a couple of good guys talking golf, spitting out hot takes, making picks, having a little fun along the way. You guys are the absolute best. If you want to support the show, the link to the Preferred Lines shop is in the bio of this show. I will do my best to put timestamps for those of you who want to skip the rants, get straight to the JDC picks. Denny week, Dirt week. I'll buy pizza for everyone in the chat for next week. If Denny wins this, we'll figure something out how to do that. I don't know about the logistics, but we'll do something fun for the show. Hope that you all have a great week. John, best of luck. Any closing or parting thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
I'll post some Shed Chronicles to continue off of where we were last week with the Keegan Shed updates. So stay tuned for that.
Shed updates, yes.
I need a name for the segment or something. We'll working title, but
we went practical, correct, on the first editions.
Yes, nothing too flashy, just some real housekeeping in the shed. We'll keep tabs, and then going forward, we'll have a poll. We'll have the chat deciding what we're going to do with the shed. Obviously, we're going to hit a winner this week, and we'll see where we go.
Content from the shed or what? When's that coming to the PL channel?
Yes.
Yes. We get you in there playing the Renaissance Club and put that on your agenda for this weekend.
Yes, I will be in LA actually next week, all of next week. So I may be broadcasting live from LA this time next Monday. So maybe not some shed content next week, but I think Open Championship week, that might make some sense. We'll see if we can get Port Rush in the semi and do a little, I don't know, hole-in-one contest.
Got a big guest joining us for the Port Rush show as well. We'll bring the guest back for the final major of the season. John, as always, pleasure being here with you tonight. Hope you have a great night. Hope everyone out there hits a winner this week. Good luck. Thanks as always for checking out Preferred Lines. You guys are the best. You make the show. We'll see you next week for the Scottish. Peace.